In March 2022, two friends got together to start a podcast discussing one of their favorite TV shows. That show would take the world by storm. Hopefully. Someday. That'd be nice. We're talking our love of Midsomer
Our favorite characters.
and our favorite episodes on this special 2-year anniversary episode of
Welcome to Midsomer.
Hello, and welcome to Midsomer, the podcast where we dissect all the mysteries, the murders, and the many weird things about the long-running hit TV show, Midsomer Murders. I'm your host, Eric Buscher, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Eileen Becker. Hey, Eileen.
Hey, Eric. Today we're celebrating our second anniversary. Not like as married people, just for the podcast. That's
Platonic.
That's right. We've been doing this for a little over 2 years, and we thought we would take a break from recapping and instead just wallow in our love of Midsomer.
That's right. We've been doing this. I just checked, and I checked the other day, and March 2022. So we're gonna. By the time this comes out, we're gonna be a little late for the anniversary. But again, platonic. So it's not like we have to give any gifts. And we just thought it would be fun to kind of just talk a little bit, recap a little bit about some of the stuff that we've done for the last couple of years, and talk a little bit about some of our favorite episodes, like we hear all the time from people about their favorite episodes or which one of the episodes that we've done is their favorite, but we've never actually shared some of our favorites. So we thought we would do that here as a special treat. If you were hoping for another recap, you'll hear us still talk about some of your favorite episodes. So please keep listening. But that said, Eileen, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you first kind of fell in love with Midsomer?
One of our local PBS stations, and I can get 3 locally here in Southern Ohio, 2 from Ohio, 1 from Kentucky.
And what's your address again?
They were playing it every Thursday night, and they would play it as a kind of as a 2-parter because it is a much longer show than is normal for in the US as far as a kind of a standard mystery. But they would show it back to back in one night, which was really nice. You didn't have to wait a week to see what happened. So I got hooked on it. Every Thursday night I would watch it, and it just got to the point where it's like, I really love this. And then I kept going with it and subscribed to Acorn and got all of them. And now I'm here.
Yep. What year was that?
Oh gosh, it was somewhere I would say around 2018, because I think it was around when my mother passed away that I started really getting into it. Yeah.
See, I think here in the States, it's there's a lot of love for the show, but it's not quite as huge as it is in the UK. It's not quite, or around the world where it's syndicated as Barnaby. So I always kind of pictured Midsomer as a cozy, a very quaint, Miss Marple-esque sort of show. And it wasn't until but I do love a good mystery. And during the pandemic, needed something to watch, something very long and bingey. And I said, well, Midsomer Murders, why not? Try one, like a nice whodunit. It's probably like a Murder, She Wrote. And, start at the beginning. So I was instantly meeting the Rainbirds and the weird sort of Tom and Joyce and the weirdness of it and the humor. And I was like, this is not at all what I was expecting. And just like over the course of a couple of months, just went through all of them, and sort of just developed a obsession with it, and just needed someone to talk to. And Eileen and I actually, in our day jobs, we worked together, or we were working together at this time, and we did not know that we had kind of discovered Midsomer until I put it out there. Oh, I need someone to talk about this with. She's like, oh, I love that show. And then we kind of decided, like just joking around, decided, oh, we should do a podcast, as all people did during the pandemic.
Every single human on the planet.
you get that stimulus check and a free subscription to your podcast recording app. Um, yeah, and then here we are after some time to sort of develop the show, and we've now been doing this for 2 years. We are up to 30 episodes, which roughly is we're getting near a quarter of the way done.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting idea. What is the genre for Midsummer Murders? It's not technically a police procedural because there's not a lot of police procedures that go on with it. It's not quite a cozy because it's a little gorier than that. And cozies generally involve an amateur detective, like a Murder She Wrote. It does have a lot in common with cozies, but it's because of the small village aspects of it. But it's in that in between world.
I mean, I think a lot of it you could really describe as there's the idea of a fair play mystery
Hmm.
where especially earlier on in the show, where all the clues were sort of really there for you to just kind of
Hmm.
piece together. Like a Knives Out. Knives Out is kind
Hmm.
of, I think, right now the quintessential fair play mystery.
Yeah,
All the pieces are there in front of you. It's up to you to kind of put them together.
yeah.
And I think Midsummer started as that. I think it's become its own sort of thing. I do tend to think it fits into this kind of idea of like, you know, it's not a cozy, it's not a hard boiled mystery. It's got a lot of humor to it. It's got some characters that are there's a lot of weird kind of quirky characters. I think it's a lot like sort of the books of Richard Osman,
Hmm. Yeah.
one could say. And I think, I don't think there is a term for this yet.
No, the best I can come up with this is like a semi cozy police mystery. I think because I do think it's not like a procedural. It is very much in the mystery genre.
I kind of I came up with the term, can't get anyone to go with me on it, but it's private dicklet.
But it's not private dick, yeah.
Right? Here, dicklet.
But yeah, let's not go there. But it does have a lot in common, especially as you said with those early mysteries with Agatha Christie. And have seen them bring back kind of a more of the Agatha Christie in, especially the last couple seasons that they have brought back. The fair play mystery, and I think Christie is the quintessential fair play. Yeah,
Classic locked room sort of.
yeah.
Um,
The manor house, the small village. I mean, she really, in many ways, invented that genre.
yeah, 100%. And I think
Yeah.
Midsummer kind of. I mean, you can't really discount Carolyn Graham. I've only read the first book in the series. I would like to read more, but it was a lot of this was on the page. There was a lot of
Yeah.
this came directly from the book and the characterization. Troy, like in the book, Killing a Badger's Drift, Troy was a lot worse. Barnaby, I love that Barnaby is described as a barrel chested man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That book really did have a lot of these sort of fair play, early light mystery
Mhm.
touches to it. That's not quite cozy. And that, it's not a cozy and it's not hard boiled. It's not a police procedural. Um, it's one and done, which is, kind of a rare, like, you see that more in British mystery shows nowadays as opposed to American mystery shows where it tends to be one and done's with an overarching mystery for the season.
Yeah.
And this does not really have like every episode is pretty much self-contained. There really isn't a
Yeah.
lot of continuation from there is no continuing storylines.
It just very small amount in the home life, but even then, it's not like you need to have watched the previous episodes to understand why uh, Tom doesn't like his wife's cooking.
But that, and also I think well, there's traits that carry through. But I'm like I think
Yeah.
like for example, John and Sarah's child, like the pregnancy,
Hmm. Hmm.
that was something that kind of carried over for a season.
Yeah.
Till you got to we got to the birth episode.
And that was for very practical reasons because the actress Fiona Dolman was indeed pregnant.
Yeah. But it's also I think that's one of the things I like about it is like it's an
Hmm.
hour and a half and it's kind of digestible and it's it is like a cozy in the sense it's very comfortable. It's an
Yeah.
it's a comfortable old shoe. Uh, it's or sweatpants. It's something,
Yeah.
a cup of cocoa on a winter night.
Yeah.
It's such an easy digestible thing that
And even
it's
the
great.
Yeah, and even the weirdness and the quirkiness and sometimes the violence, and let's face it, there is incest and adultery and some weird sibling relationships in almost every single episode. But even that has a coziness to it, that or a comfort to it, because you kind of after the first few episodes, you begin to expect all that.
I also think it's interesting that over the years they've toned that down. If you think
Hmm.
about it, like that was much more palatable in '98 than it is in 2020. Like they don't have like, you know, part of it is Nettles liked the kind of the big over the top weirdness to it,
Yeah.
and Neil Dudgeon, as I think they've said in interviews, Dudgeon kind of likes that they've toned back the violence a little bit.
Hmm.
I think they've kept all the weirdness, but they've also like toned down things like the violence, the incest. So it's not three times a season.
Which is weird because, as we've had recent discoveries about, there's a lot more incest out there than was previously thought, as they found with DNA testing.
Gross.
So, Midsomer Murders was ahead of the curve.
Gross. Let's talk a little bit about our favorite episodes. Now, Eileen and I, we created our top. We have two lists of top 3 episodes. Now, Eileen, you went the entire spectrum of the series, correct?
I did. I had to, because two of my favorites are ones we haven't done yet.
That's fine. And I thought it would be more fun to kind of rank the ones that like my top 3 of the ones that we've actually
Mhm.
done episodes for. And you will hear clips from those episodes interspersed throughout this. But Eileen, what's your number 3 favorite episode?
My number 3 is Ghosts of Christmas Past, because I adore a good Christmas mystery.
Remind me which one. Like this is I believe is the this is like the small cottage house, kind of like a locked house mystery, correct?
It is a locked house mystery, and it is the family returns from the Christmas mass. They've all gotten together for the holidays, including some people who haven't been around. There's a very precocious child who ends up not being annoying, just precocious, which is always nice. And nobody believes him, and people start dropping dead, including the nice old lady that you really, come to love. This is one where you you feel like the murderer has a point, because the people did a horrible, horrible thing, and it has just some really wonderful performances in it. It is just a really great Christmas mystery.
It's interesting. It's like the revenge killing, really the
Hmm.
justified revenge murder is a well they go to a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly, more times than not, tend to feel sympathy for those killers.
Yeah. I think they do those kinds of mysteries very well, especially when they revolve around a family. And they do, again, when they kind of focus on this family thing, they really do it well. And I think that's what they have in common with Agatha Christie. She was so good at the family mystery.
So my number 3 is Talking to the Dead, which we did our episode with the great Alice Bell. Take a listen. Let's go back again to this whole antique ring plan because, as we have said many times, this is a Scooby Doo plot. Faking a haunting to cover up your theft or moving stolen goods or whatever is literally the plot of like 10 Scooby Doo episodes.
It's very good. It's very fun. And I love, we've got Chekhov's Iron Maiden as well, which
Yeah.
Jones gets hilariously shut in the first half. Then,
Yeah.
that pays off when Pargeter is impaled in it, which is quite fun. But there is, if you actually watch Midsomer, most of the time they tell you exactly what the answer is, and there's a lot of shots early on of just the trees and like wind blowing through the trees and stuff, and it's like saying, well, that's where the ghosts are, because that's where they find the speakers and things.
So when Eileen and I were deciding to do this show, we decided to pick we've always sort of picked episodes using a random number generator. Which is why we've never kind of gone in order, just because, again, the show is episodic. It doesn't really need to go in order. So we random number generator, and the first one we came up with is Talking to the Dead. And we recorded a whole pilot episode, which will never hear the light of day, talking about Talking to the Dead. And we were both very excited to do this one because there's so much meat on the bone. I think Talking to the Dead is probably my favorite example of just straight up bonkers Midsomer. The Scooby-Doo plot, the weird house full of antiques, the murderer pretending to be crazy and dragging people through the woods in a way that we should have seen him in the background. The great guest star who's just seems to disappear for large chunks of time for no it really is just like one where like all the the murder and the murder and the weird fits into one big delicious stew that makes absolutely no sense, but it is such a joy to watch. It's just one of my favorite. It's just one of my favorite ones.
It is one of the most quotable episodes. It has the great scene of Jones getting stuck in the Iron Maiden. It has Barnaby at his weirdest in many ways. It has great Joyce moments.
Well, it does have the very, probably the most, the epitome of Tom and Joyce's relationship when he just walks out of dinner and drives off.
Yeah.
Leaving her there.
Yeah.
No, that is absolutely one of my favorites.
Yeah.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is one that I think of as the quintessential small village episode, and that is Judgment Day.
Well, so that is absolutely. So we did this completely blind. My number 2 is also Judgment Day.
Yeah, I think what is.
Let's recap a quick. Judgment Day is.
That is the one. It starts off in the past, which is something that they do every so often, and I think is a very effective way to start an episode. Because it starts off in the past and then you kind of forget it, and then it comes back at the end and it's like, oh yeah. But it is the one where Orlando Bloom gets a pitchfork in the chest. Yep,
that is the classic. That is the classic moment from that Orlando Bloom, which makes kind of the list of one of the top of usually the famous cameos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is kind of the perfect small town one. It's a strong Barnaby and Troy. But when you actually get the reveal, so has she just not been killing this entire... she's been out and about and just hasn't killed anybody in forever, and then just nah, screw it.
Yeah, it doesn't completely work for that. As much as I love this episode, I think that's kind of a weak point, because for me, it's like with Peter Drinkwater, he would have been easily bought off. Give him 100 quid, 200 quid, he would have left town.
Also, the daughter's 20 years old, and if she had just waited 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
I just waited 10 minutes and we found out, oh no, this guy's not going to happen. But I just feel like if she did that to protect her daughter, there's got to be a string of dead bullies at school.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of unsolved murders in her past that her husband just never got hold of in his brain. Though I will say, Timothy West, the realization when they're having that conversation and being interviewed, and the facial expressions he goes through without giving everything away at that point, is really quite good.
Again, sort of sympathy for this murderer, and even though she's kind of a little nuts, you kind of actually maybe not for the murderer, but so much for the husband.
The husband. I think there is and again, there's some tie-ins to Agatha Christie there that are very subtle but nicely done. There's the Village Fete, which is amazing. There's the whole Best Village of England contest, which is great. There's just so many things. There's the crazy writer. There's the people getting drunk. There's it's just amazing. It's a lovely, lovely episode. So well done. It feels like it goes all over the place, but it is very tightly plotted.
We both agreed Judgment Day is the second best episode of Midsomer.
Yeah.
Eileen, what's your favorite Midsomer episode?
My favorite, and again, it's one we haven't done yet, is The Green Man. This is a lovely episode with David Bradley, who I will talk about a lot, and a young Henry Cavill. For me, this is the one that, when I was finished watching it, had the most effect on me. It's a Troy episode, which I'm not a huge Troy fan.
And yet you've picked two of them.
I know. But it is the last Troy episode, and this is the one that really shows his growth as a character. I actually like Troy in here. It's weird because Tom is very much removed from a lot of the investigation in here, because he's preoccupied with something else that's going on. But when he does come in and is face to face with the other Tom, which is the name of David, which is the name of David Bradley's character, there's this probably my favorite scene in the entire series of the two of them as he is interviewing him. And it's lovely. It is two actors who are just so great, and they are wonderful together. And it makes me cry.
Aww. I look forward to talking about this episode for you. I was assuming it was going to be the one with Ben Jones' butt.
I do like, there are two Ben Jones Butts episodes. I do like them.
Okay, rank which one's your favorite.
I actually, the Rigging Out the Dead is really a good one, though. Yeah, and you do get a shower scene with him.
Yes. All right. My favorite episode of all the ones that we have done, going way, way back to one of our earliest episodes, The Axeman Cometh.
Oh, see, that one, my number 4 for me. I love it.
It is just, again, pure crazy. Like the whole thing with Barnaby sort of reliving his teenage years, I just think is hysterical. I was listening to clips of it last night, and just like how, like, having done, it's interesting how like we did that episode so early on, but like listening like how we've sort of talk about the show now. I think that was like one of the episodes where we really kind of like figured out what our show was, but also I think like just enjoyed sort of the weird insanity of, James Cosmo.
Yeah.
John Lee Hooker. Still love that line reading.
Yeah.
I think that any discussion of this episode really, as we hinted at the beginning, really has to look at Barnaby and his, is it a midlife crisis? What he is just going on about this band. He is playing air guitar. He's going through the old records. He's talking the 12-bar blues.
He's reliving his youth.
It's definitely reliving his youth.
Yeah. And, when the band arrives in town, and especially when the Axeman shows up, he becomes total fanboy.
He
and
does.
As much as he tries to rein it in when he's technically interviewing the Axeman, it never quite comes off.
Well, number one, he jams with him.
Yes.
Like, I'm trying to understand that, like, Barnaby is so starstruck that he's like, well, I was on stage. I was like, that's true. Hey, do you want to play some John Lee Hooker?
I love that Jones is so skeptical of everything, and he doesn't know how to handle Barnaby in this episode. And he just has to kind of, in some way, trust his boss will eventually come around.
Also, he gets that bit where he finds out that Barnaby's daughter was probably sleeping with one of the suspects.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not telling him.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, fun question.
Mm-hmm.
What's your least favorite episode?
My least favorite, and this ends up on a lot of least favorite episodes, is Night of the Stag, which is an episode that when first remember, I remember the first time I watched it, and I was like, oh, cool. It starts off in a cider house, and I love cider, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And you keep thinking, there's got to be some kind of redemption to this episode somewhere, and there just never is. It just gets awful and awful and awful. Layers and layers of awful.
Yeah, and it's got the same kind of problem that my least favorite episode does. It's got an ick factor that it doesn't shake.
Yeah.
Like, the premise where like one whole town rapes the women of another town is just, it's so not appropriate nowadays, but it wasn't appropriate then either. And it's like, I can't imagine like two villages just in the middle of like the 21st century just going, yeah, this is acceptable.
Yeah. It wasn't acceptable during the Roman times, during the rape of the Sabine women. It wasn't acceptable at any time in history.
But I also can't imagine like once I was like, well, okay, here we go again.
Yeah.
It had such an ick factor.
Yeah.
And so does my least favorite episode of the ones that we've done. I think my least favorite is Masterclass, which is and it's one of those ones as I was listening to it, sort of like with Night of Stag, it starts off fun and it starts off different. And the more and more it goes on and you find out the premise of the killers and it becomes so icky. And at least in this one, they all kind of understand that it's kind of icky.
Yeah.
But it's so unrepentantly icky that it's just like the last 15 minutes of that episode are just like, I don't need to watch this. This is just so unrepentantly gross.
Yeah.
So has the competition the whole time just been to find her?
I don't think so. It seems like it's been going on for a long time, which is why it is, it has to build up that prestige over years.
Oh no. Do you think that the competition was ways for Sir Michael to find talented young women who
breed with?
Try to breed with them?
That's really gross.
It is, but it's also really plausible in that guy's worldview.
Oh yeah. I think he would have banged Orlando if it didn't have such a bad left hand.
And I think that's like that is where like sort of Midsomer, the dividing line, right? That balancing act of like, yeah, okay, we're going to have over the top violence at points. We're going to have a lot of incest and a lot of weird, like some weird, gross stuff that happens. And sometimes they can balance it just right. But it does seem like when they try to like lean in to the gross, that's where the tone goes wrong. Because that's not it. Like Midsomer needs just a little bit of gross. It doesn't need a lot.
Yeah, and again, I think tonally on these, and these are both ones that end up on a lot of least favorite episode lists, is that they don't get the tone right. They go just a little too far.
Okay. So, favorite episodes and least favorite episodes, but what about favorite characters? Eileen, we both have a top three. And this is this is widely acceptable because we've now done episodes with every single major character, every coroner, every detective. So, Eileen, who's your third favorite character on Midsomer?
I'm going with, and I had a lot of discussion on this because because I love like Kate Wilding. I love all, I love Dan Scott, which I know a lot of people don't, but I went with Sarah Barnaby because Fiona Dolman does a great job with her, but I think she's written very well. And I like that she has been portrayed as a very strong woman, independent of her husband, in a different way than Joyce was. They could have gone with the traditional wife, but they updated the whole policeman's wife with this. She's a teacher. She becomes head of the school. She's not as involved in a lot of the mysteries as Joyce was because she doesn't tend to come across dead bodies as much. She doesn't have all those outside activities that Joyce does. But I just love her character. She's a loving wife, but she also isn't just that. She is a very smart woman. I love when she gets involved with the historical society, and in that one episode when everything goes crazy, she is just like has no idea what to do, because we'd all be that way in that situation. She's very identifiable. I love her.
Nice. My third favorite is D.I. Ben Jones. He's always been my favorite partner. I think Jason Hughes has always brought that perfect. He has always found that balance in Midsomer of funny and odd with the solid mystery detective aspect. We watch him grow over many seasons. I don't quite get the sexiness aspect that they keep trying to push for Jason Hughes, but hey,
I do.
Yeah. When he gets to do episodes where he gets to do a lot more than just be Nettles or Dudgeon's number 2, like say Oblong Murders or Talking to the Dead, or gets to dress up as a nun. When he gets to do more physical comedy, when he gets to do other things, he's so good. Honestly, I think Jason Hughes is just one of those great gifted comedic actors. He should be doing. I feel like he should do more comedy. Because he showed that he can handle slapstick. He can handle like subtle stuff. He's really talented.
He is a very talented actor, and I'll talk more about him later. My number 2 is Fleur Perkins. I love a good corner. Like I said, Kate Wilding was definitely in my top 4 or 5 characters. But Fleur brought a level of craziness that I think the show needed at that point, because John and his home life are not as kind of crazy as Joyce and Tom's home life was. So they needed something to kind of have, somebody to say those lines to bring in that kind of unfiltered craziness to it. And Fleur does that. She's strong, she's smart, she doesn't take any guff, and she is a hoot.
Yes.
And Annette Badland is terrific.
My number 2 is Joyce. Joyce Barnaby. So it's interesting we both chose the wives in our top characters. I always think Joyce, it's funny is like one of our listeners wrote to us and said like, oh, I'd love to know, like do a whole episode on the enigma that is Joyce Barnaby. And I was like, maybe and someday we'll probably get to that, because she is a character of infinite complexity, and she's always taking classes. She's always she's going with Tom to places, even though she knows someone's going to get murdered.
Yeah.
She's always sort of the suffering on date night because he's going to leave. But I think it's interesting is like when I think of those episodes where like the one where they're locked in the wine cellar. And we just see Joyce just go out and have the time of her life, just barely notices that Tom's. That's sort of the key in with her, is just like she has this rich, full life that Tom's never going to be a part of because he's never there.
Yeah.
I just think that Jane Wymark she is got such a great presence, and she just balances Nettles so well. And yeah, I think that she's just like, whenever she's on, I'm like, yeah, happy to see her.
Yeah, she and Nettles work so well together. Her line readings are some of my favorites, especially when she, at the end of Country Matters, when she was discussing the 3 women. And she's often reduced to the punchline of her bad cooking, but she's much more than that. This is a woman who has taken more classes than most PhD students, has found more dead bodies than most police officers, and is still a warm, loving human being.
Yeah, she's great, and she is the perfect foil. But I do think it's interesting that we've chosen the wives, and we did not choose either one of the Barnabys.
I love them, but I mean, when they're the center, they have to be, and they both get a little weird at times, but when you are the center of the storm, I mean, it's like Bob Newhart in his shows, where he is the center of the storm and there's these crazy characters around him. But he is the straight man, and he is so good at that. Both of the Barnabys are very, very good at that, being the straight men.
Yes. Who's your number one favorite character?
My number one is Ben Jones. And
Yay.
yeah, for a lot of the reasons you said, but I also think Jason Hughes is a generous actor. Whenever he is in a scene, and you see this with a lot of the actors that they bring on, because they bring in so many high quality actors. He works well, even with some of the people who aren't famous. But he has like you said, the comedic chops. He can do a spit take like no one else, and but he's also just a really great actor overall. He is. I get the sexiness. I will fully admit that. And but he puts himself out there as an actor and really goes there.
But he put something out there, right?
He got very close to putting out maybe a little too much, but fortunately there was a towel.
Or unfortunately for you. Well, it's again, we've kind of crossed over into each other's lists. My number one favorite character is Fleur. I think Annette Badland she's just a great magnetic actress anyways. And, I still say that Ted Lasso did her dirty by not giving her a full episode, because she would have been great.
Yeah.
But I think I agree with you that Fleur kind of comes in and she gives an energy that the show has been missing for a really long time, which is that she is just charismatic and strong-willed, and I don't want to say bossy, but she is definitely commanding, and she's like, she takes no guff, and she is it's a personality type that they haven't actually had outside of the Barnabys, and that's what makes her such at the start, the perfect foil for the Barnabys is yeah, I don't care what you say, this is my scene.
Yeah.
And she's still like that, even in recent seasons, she's walk where I tell you to walk. And I love that about her. And I love that she's always coming as an episode. Oh, I dated a clown once.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know how to do this. Oh, I've done this before. She's in fact, they're running dangerously close to making her just too Cosmo Kramer. She's just into everything. Just a little too much. She steals every scene she's in.
Mm-hmm.
And deservedly so. She's so good. Annette, we love you. You'll never hear this. If you know Annette Badland, please play her this bit where we say we love you, and so
and she spent several years on Bergerac with John Nettles, but I still want that scene where she's at a murder scene. He comes up because he's a witness or something. He's retired, obviously, long retired, and he comes along and he sees her and he goes, Charlotte, which was her name in Bergerac, and she goes, hush, Jim. It's Fleur now. And he goes, it's Tom now. Anyway, that's my dream scene between the two of them. It will never happen.
No, because that's it's one of those weird crossover things. It's just that's the Midsomer multiverse right there.
That is the Midsomer multiverse.
But Midsomer has great regular actors, but they've had some great guest stars.
Yeah.
Eileen, who's your favorite guest star on Midsomer?
Well, I have mentioned him already, and it is David Bradley. From the Harry Potter films as Filch, you know him from Game of Thrones as oh shoot, I can't remember.
The gross guy who believed in incest, so it's almost like he was from Midsomer.
But he's been in so many things. He did a wonderful job portraying the actor who played the first Doctor, and he portrayed, and he
Hartnell.
has William Hartnell, and he has actually portrayed the first Doctor in some episodes as well, because he does resemble him quite a lot. His performance in this as the Green Man, as the man who lives out in the woods, is tender. It is enigmatic in many ways. You don't know how he ended up there until the very end. It is sympathetic, empathetic. He plays so well against the other actors in the scene, where he is so much in character that you believe every cell in his body with it.
Well, I think he's one of those interesting actors where I think he probably gained a much wider. People kind of noticed who he was because of obviously his role in Harry Potter as the grumpy caretaker, whatever. Filch,
Yeah,
Filch. And I think for a period during the Harry Potter films and after, you would see him in roles where he's playing grumpy guy, grumpy
Yeah.
and he looks like the old grumpy guy. And I think in the last 10 years, you've seen him because of this higher profile. You've seen him do sort of a wider diverse. I think he's fantastic in Broadchurch. I thought he was fantastic in sort of the movie about the making of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And I've seen him in a number of things where I just think he's a really good, strong character actor now that he gets to kind of break out of playing grumpy guy.
Yeah.
And he's a remarkable actor of depth.
Yeah. And like I said, the scene between him and John Nuttall, as two actors who are just so good. And when they're together, and it's just all in the subtlety.
My favorite actor or guest star on this of the shows that we've done has to be James Callis for his double duty in The Dark Rider. We said it before that he's clearly having a ball in that role, playing wussy twin and macho twin, and he's just chewing the scenery and having a blast. And I have always liked James Callis. I think he, obviously he's probably best known for his work on Battlestar Galactica, but pretty much everyone on that show does just takes genre and elevates it to a different level. And on this one, he's just, he takes that idea of the same actor playing twins and he kind of does it over the top, but in such a way that you barely notice.
Yeah. Midsomer is really great at casting these great actors, whether it is James Cosmo, as we mentioned before, or Harriet Walter in the 2 episodes she did, Sinead Cusack, both Edward and James Fox.
Yes.
I mean, the list is endless, and well, not endless because because they have such a great pool to choose from in England.
I worry with it's noticeable, especially as Midsomer has gained more of an audience and they can get bigger names. The bigger names do tend to be the murderer. Like that's like, oh, is this the most recognizable actor? They probably did it, and they kind of have, which is a bit of a bummer when you're trying to figure out who did it. And you just go, well, yeah, they got Edward Fox. He's going to be the guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because why else would
David Warner? Yeah.
Yeah. Why else would you bring him in?
Yeah. Yeah.
But they get nice meaty roles.
Yeah. They do, and I think these are nice, and I think that's what the thing that draws them is that they are nicely written, thoroughly thought out roles.
Yeah. Now here's the question: who hasn't been a guest star that you would like to see?
Oh, I have. Talking about the Midsomer alternate universe, I have a whole episode in which Judi Dench plays Fleur's sister, and she's an MP from like somewhere around New York, but she's visiting in Midsomer. Her sister, she gets involved in a murder, and she's a major suspect, and Fleur is not sure if she wants her to be the murderer or not because they've been rivals their entire lives. So, yeah, I've got a whole Judi Dench episode in my head that will never be done.
Do you write fan fiction that I'm not aware of?
I don't write it. It just exists in my head.
Folks, if you see that storyline anywhere on the internet, let me know. Email us at welcometomidsomer@gmail.com because then I'll know where Eileen's fan fiction website is. The person I think who would probably have a great time on the show, I think Ian McKellen. I don't think it matters what role he would be given. I think he is such a fun, charismatic act. I'd love to see Ian McKellen and Annette Badland in some scenes together because again, I think they would bounce off each other so well.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just the type that, didn't he do Coronation Street because he was a huge fan?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So can we? So if people haven't been showing Ian McKellen Midsomer, Have him show have Simon Callow call Ian McKellen up, because Simon's been on this show a few times, and I'm sure those two have worked together.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, they have. And, I'm sure they've been longtime friends in the theater. Yeah.
Or even better, let's get Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart on the same episode.
Ooh. That would be good.
That would be fun. Hey, we forgot to say who our least favorite character is on Midsomer. I bet we have the same one. Shall we? Let's count down from 3 to 1, and then at 1, is it 3, 2, 1, and then let's say the name of our least favorite character. I bet you it's the same.
Oh gosh, I got to think of who it is. Who I don't like. I mean, are you talking like main recurring character?
Main recurring, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Ready?
Okay. Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Troy. Yeah. And I just finished talking about how much I enjoyed, by the time the Green Man came along, how much he had changed. But those early Troy is just the worst.
Early Troy is really hard, and sadly it left like a shadow that took a long time to dispel.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, like by the end, he's much more likable. And I feel fairly confident that Daniel Casey went to the writers after into the second season, once they were off the books, and was like, can we tone down some of this stuff, because it makes the character kind of really repellent in a lot of ways. And that's like, definitely start seeing that shift in the second and third seasons of just them cutting down. Like he's more of a bumbling novice than just like kind of, I mean, the bigotry stuff is pretty bad.
Yeah. It does get toned down. It doesn't go away completely.
No.
He does grow as a detective. When you watch those first episodes, Tom Barnaby is kind of really dismissive and rude to him in many ways. And I know he gets that way with all of them, but
in the book, Troy is kind of undermining him in ways, and he's just kind of a real jerk to him in ways that they don't really have in the show. They kept that character, that relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that he gets better as time, but like that first couple of seasons are rough.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap up here, but I want to say is like we kind of put out on our social media feeds asking our listeners to let us know what their favorite episodes were. And we have to say, we got a few responses, and overwhelmingly the one that people keep crediting as their favorite is Written in Blood, the very second episode. So as a tribute to all of our listeners, suggesting that one, that's our next episode. So next time you hear our voices, you're finally getting that episode you've wanted to hear. We're going to talk Written in Blood.
Yep.
So that's as like a little thank you. I mean, I think that's a way to just say a little thank you to everyone who's been listening to us for the last 2 years. We seem to have a steady group of fans who kind of like what we do, and that's really encouraging. And we want to say thank you. We couldn't do it without you guys, really.
Yeah, we appreciate our fan base, as they say in Murders in the Building. We do have fans.
We're not egotists. Like, we want to thank everyone who's been listening to us, everyone who follows us on social media, everyone who follows, has subscribed to us, everyone who's like following us on YouTube. We really do love doing the show, and we're really appreciative of the fact that you seem to enjoy it as well.
And thank you for taking the time to listen to us blather on about how much we love Midsomer and dissect things, and sometimes get into the nitty gritty. And, sometimes it's, you just want to let a show wash over you, but, we do have to sometimes pick out all those little nits that need picking.
I think Midsomer has shown that it's a show that has a sense of humor about itself. And I think any recap show about Midsomer should also have a sense of humor about itself.
And we do have a lot of fun. And Eric and I, we have always enjoyed our we still work somewhat together. We're not as closely connected in our work lives as we were a bit ago when we started. But we have a lot of fun talking about just everything in general, and Midsomer in specific.
And we plan on keeping going.
Yeah.
So that's it for us today. We want to thank everyone for listening for 2 whole years. If you have anything you want to discuss about Midsomer Murders, feel free to email us at welcometomidsomer@gmail.com. If you want us to use the email in the show, you have to say so in the email. You're also welcome to Midsomer on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. We are welcome to Midsomer on YouTube, and we've been uploading our old episodes, so please follow us in all these places. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing to us or rating and reviewing us on iTunes. It really helps people find us. Tell all your friends about us. We will be back in just a few weeks with Written in Blood. So go ahead and watch that and rewatch that and get all ready for it. Because we hope you will join us again for that show. As we take the road out of Midsomer, I just want to say one more time, thank you for listening to us for these 2 years. Keep listening to us and remind you that in Midsomer, nostalgia can be murder.
And usually is.
Welcome to Midsomer is produced by Eric Buscher and Eileen Becker. All clips in this podcast are used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act fair use exception for criticism and commentary. Our logo and podcast art was designed by Smeedrai. Our theme music is by the infamous Space.